Mike Wood.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. As a Conservative, I believe that taxes, whether direct or indirect, need to be kept as low as possible, consistent with the need to raise finances for our vital public services and for our national security. Not only does unnecessarily high taxation strangle growth and development, but it also means government taking from those who have earned that money, whether through labour, through innovation or through capital. However, the flip side of keeping tax levels low is that everybody must pay their fair share. Aggressive tax avoidance, bending the rules of the tax system to gain an advantage that Parliament never intended, means that a heavier burden falls on others who are able to keep less of the money that they have earned. This government is rightly committed to supporting businesses through low taxes, and that's why corporation tax is being cut again to 17%. But those taxes do have to be paid. And so this finance bill addresses many ways that companies use to avoid paying their fair level of tax, and that includes the amendments that we're debating now, tabled by the government, to reform hybrid mismatches. These amendments will reduce aggressive tax planning, typically involving a multinational group. The introduction of the rules will essentially remove the tax advantage arising from the use of hybrid entities and instruments, and ought to encourage more businesses to adopt less complicated, more transparent cross-border investment structures. I look forward to similar rules being introduced by other jurisdictions, but in line with OECD recommendations, this legislation contains provisions for counteraction within the UK, where the other country does not counteract the mismatch within its own hybrid mismatch rules. This bill introduces the new penalty of 60% of tax due that was announced in the budget, to be charged in all cases successfully tackled by the general anti-avoidance regulations. Amendments 136 and 137, tabled by the government, help to make sure that the changes announced in the budget work as intended, cracking down further on unscrupulous, aggressive tax avoidance. I agree with the comments raised by my honourable friend for Dover and Deal on country-by-country reporting, and of course those raised so regularly by the honourable lady for Sheffield and I'm afraid Don Valley. There is widespread and I think growing, Don Valley. There is widespread and growing agreement across all parts of this House that there is a need to move towards country-by-country reporting, so that that information is published, it is out there, it's available both to national tax authorities, but also, as has been mentioned, of course, the wider public. So the question comes back to whether the best way of achieving that is for individual countries to act unilaterally, or for the UK to move in partnership with our international allies and through a range of international organisations, both within and beyond Europe. Of course.
I thank him. Can he bear in mind, I hope he is, of course we on these benches want international action, we want international cooperation, and in fact we want our international friends to copy what I hope will be successful in my right honourable friend's amendment tonight. But we also need to bear in mind that half the taxations in the world, basically, are British overseas territories. We have a particular responsibility in this regard worldwide. It's not just some kind of moral responsibility, to use the old-fashioned phrase, white man's burden, or any of that nonsense. It is to do with the fact they are British overseas territories who are responsible for half of these shenanigans.
I think that the honourable gentleman makes a very valid point. However, I think we should also, and I'm sure he would, recognise the progress that has been made in recent years to insist on those overseas territories really moving into the 21st century in terms of their tax arrangements to actually comply with what we would expect for international standards. Because in a globalised world, we must be clear that concerted international effort is needed to stop the continued cross-border tax avoidance, evasion, or plain old-fashioned, aggressive but unscrupulous planning. The UK government has done more than any previous government and more than most of our international allies and competitors to eradicate these practices and continues to do so. But of course more must be done, and I welcome the assurances that we have heard from the government that this does remain a priority. So I'm pleased that the government is now pursuing country-by-country reporting and that it will be discussed at the forthcoming G20 finance ministers meeting. I think this measure by itself will again help to increase that transparency across multinationals, supporting not only our own tax authorities, but perhaps even more importantly, those tax authorities in the developing countries of which we've heard that are being almost literally robbed of vital sources of income. Madam Deputy Speaker, in conclusion, this finance bill, the amendments that have been tabled to it, includes both pioneering and bold measures. It will ensure that taxes are paid and that everybody pays their fair share, and I look forward to supporting it this evening.